getting particular about Auricula. Hi, I'm Roofe and welcome to Get Gardening, and in this video we're looking at splitting, dividing and general care for auriculas at this time of the year. Now we're getting into the autumn season and it's an ideal time for you to maintain your auriculas. Now I'm sure some of you have got these at home, whether they're plants which you've bought from the garden centre to grow in alpine troughs or to grow in sort of sunny, stony parts of the border, or some of you might be like me and you might be a bit of an auricula fancier and you might collect lots of different varieties and grow them in pots in cold greenhouses or cold frames. But they're plants which do need some care and attention throughout the autumn months in particular. And now's an ideal time to be dividing, splitting down plants and making not only new plants to bulk up your collection, but also to ensure that the actual plump rosettes that you've got continue to do well and flower in subsequent years. And it all seems very nice that you may want to leave your auriculas to bulk up like this and to make these wonderful clusters. And sometimes, you know, that's not a bad thing to do if you sort of want to have a nice big bushy plant. But what you'll find is that with these multiple rosettes, you won't get a great deal of flower. And what these plants actually like is they like to be split down into single crowns and grown relatively tightly in small pots. And this mimics their sort of natural surroundings. You know, they originate from the Dolomites, so they grow in mountainous regions, they grow in tight rock crevices, good sunlight, they're not overcrowded or clustered with other things. And it means that, you know, they will flower and they will just perform very, very well. So this clump here should eventually look something like this. And I do this for a number of reasons. I do it because I want more plants, because I'm a little bit greedy when it comes to auriculas. Also it means that I'm guaranteed to sort of have good numbers of each variety in case I lose some, because it happens to any gardener. And it also means I get lots more flowers. Okay, so we're going to look at how to do it. I've done a mix here, a mix of compost to grow them in, and you'll speak to any gardener and they will always have different compost mixes, and you speak to anybody that grows auriculas, and I've only been growing auriculas for about sort of maybe 7-8 years now, but we all have our different recipes. If you read the old books, you'll have a recipe probably involving bull's blood or possibly brewer's scum. There might be a little bit of soil or compost in there somewhere, but it's a whole concoction of different things. But for me, I tend to use a mix of a multi-purpose compost, a John Innes number 3 and lots of grit. And you'll be wondering, well, what sort of proportions are there in here? So there's 2 parts John Innes number 3, there's 2 parts grit, and there's 1 part multi-purpose compost. Now a part always flummoxes people because they think, well, what is a part? Well, a part could be anything. A part could be a scoop like this. You know, it could be, if you've only got a few auriculas, it could be a small pot like this, could be a part. So it doesn't really matter what the part is in sort of terms of its volume, as long as, you know, you use that sort of quantity. So 2 parts John Innes, 2 parts grit, 1 part multi-purpose, and I think that gives them a lovely mix. And I have great success with this. Now, if you're growing auriculas en masse like I am, then you know, you may want to think about putting some slow release fertiliser in there. That's also very good. And at a later date, you'll have to think about sort of treating the compost with something for vine weevils, because vine weevil larvae absolutely love primula roots because they're very, very succulent and juicy. But for the time being, this mix is all we're going to need to sort of get on with what we want to do. And I've mixed it in the barrel here just because it's nice and easy. And it is lovely. It is lovely. And you may have to adjust it slightly because it will depend on how your John Innes compost comes about, because John Innes is a blend, it's a recipe, but I tend to find that buying it from different sources, it can be quite different. You know, in some cases it will have lots of loam in it, other cases it will have slightly more sort of more peat in it, to be honest, more sort of organic matter. So see how you get on. But this is lovely. It's got really good drainage and it will do these plants well. So what we want to do is we want to think about splitting these down. So let's have a look at that. So there we are. So you see these have been potted for a couple of years. They've been in these pots. We've got the odd weed, a bit of herb Robert which appears. And what you'll find with auriculas, and let me just do this over here, come over this side, you want to shake all that rubbish off them. That's really important, okay? And you'll see how they've made up with all these little plants. And we're going to be quite rough with them. We're going to take these off. That's a new plant. Doesn't look much at the moment, but it will be. And I'm going to take another one off here. I'm just going to tease them off. There we are. And take any old leaves off the bottom as well. That's a good thing to do. Put the old rubbish in here for the moment. Another one here. That's only got a small bit of root on it, but you'll be amazed at what that will do. There's only a small bit of root there, but it'll do good things. And we've got another one here. There we are. You see, they're getting these. The thing about Auriculas is they get sort of a long carrot on them, and the carrot is the stem and into the root. When they get a long carrot on them, that's when you can get problems with them, because you want them to be slightly snugger. Now that one there, let's see about that. Well, there's not a lot on there. However, if you look down at the bottom here, you'll see there that little sort of nodule. There's very small amounts of root appearing. So I'm going to give that a go, because I always like to give them a go. If it doesn't do anything, I've not lost anything, but I would hate the thought of it just going straight in the compost bin. It makes me grief-stricken sometimes when I think about doing that to them. A few more leaves off the bottom. There we are. Clean that up, the old chicken feather. But that's looking quite good. And then what we've got here, so we've got the other main rosette, and this will give us good flowers next year. These ones probably won't flower next year, but they will bulk up really well. Clean all that muck off. And that one's very, very nice and plump. I'm going to take a few more leaves off there just to clean that up. I'm going to pop these in here, and then we're going to see about potting. So I've got quite small pots. Now I tend to use either sort of small 7 centimetres or slightly larger 9s, depending on the actual sort of variety, and you'll sort of get to know whether things are more vigorous or not. But don't go any bigger than this. Auriculas don't like to be in a pot which they have too much space. They like to have their roots quite sort of nicely compacted in. And what we're going to do here, coming closer, have a look, is I'm just going to tuck those roots in there like so, okay, and then I'm going to just feed round them, okay, and then I'm just going to firm down, just fingers just round there, give it a tap, and it's done. It's as simple as that. And then that plant will grow on quite nicely and hopefully produce better roots. Now we are late in the season, okay, so we're now in sort of September time, okay, and these won't want too much water right the way through the sort of winter period. I tend to keep them just on the dry side. But what I will do is I will give this a water to settle it in, okay, and then I will leave it. And if it starts to wilt very slightly like this one has, you'll see the leaves there, they aren't as turgid as full as they should be. I will give it just a small amount of water, and it's very much a labour of love, because they will just need a small trickle of moisture just to rehydrate them. Too much and they will rot off easily. So I'm just going to do another one just to show you. So this one, because they've got shorter roots on them, those I'm going to put a little bit of compost in the bottom there. I'm going to sit that somewhere in the middle there. Hold those leaves up, fill around, squeeze in, give it a tap, job done. Simple as that. And I'll keep going with these rosettes. So at that one pot, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 7 new plants, okay? One will give me lots of flowers next year, maybe even 2, and the rest will flower in subsequent years. The important thing is to label them up really well. You'll see I've got this variety here is Auricula Dark Eyes. I always put a bit more information on the back, so I've put, you know, double black on there, just so I've got a bit more information about it. And you will get to know all your varieties over time, but if they're new to you growing them like this one is, then it's always good to add a bit more information. And then just behind me, you'll see very much a sort of Heath Robinson, a makeshift plastic sort of tunnel here. But this is perfect for Auriculas to grow in for me, because it's got this sort of green mesh that holds all the polythene together. So it's dappled shaded, it's a diffused light, and at this time of year that's really quite good for them. And also it's got openings on both ends, and airflow is so important. They hate to be somewhere where it's stagnant. They like the air to flow through. They don't really need warmth as such. So the reason they're in here over the winter months is because really it keeps the worst of the wet off them, which is what they don't like. But I'll open both ends of this up and allow lots of air to flow through, and it'll keep these plants really happy. And then next season, when they come into flower, we'll look at the different plants again and hopefully see how they've developed, look at them in flower and see how to sort of keep them looking good through their flowering season. They really are lovely things, and they're beautiful flowers, sweetly scented. They don't take up much space. What more could you want from a plant? About Auricula. how to enunciate.
Enunciate, darling.
Like something from the World Service.